Morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So multi-objective optimization. We have very little time left. I'll try to squeeze my presentation into the remaining time. Concepts, methods, and applications in fusion machines design and control of plasma states. Unlike wonderful presentations from Sarah, Adriana, and Georgi, this is not a presentation of original results. Rather, it's a review, it's a survey of multi-objective optimization, and with some examples from plasma control and tokamak design. So why do I want to talk about that? I think first, it's crucially important subject when it comes to solving complex engineering problems, and we are slowly but surely moving from physics-dominated problem in fusion design to engineering-dominated problem. And every complex engineering problem is a combination of trade-offs, is a combination of different constraints, and that's what we are facing in the next couple of years. Within our generation, like optimists say, we will have a reactor, we will have a fusion, but the most complex problems are still ahead of us. It's engineering problem. And second, I think we don't get enough attention to multi-objective optimization in our area. It's understandable. It doesn't give you a good publication, a good paper in Nature, but it's still very important. And also with the proliferation of data science, machine learning, with its focus on mostly single objective optimization, the multi-objective aspects of what we are trying to solve are muted. And I think my goal is to try to convey that this is an interesting, fruitful, and potentially very productive perspective. And I encourage the audience to look at the problems in our area, in fusion design, in fusion technology from this perspective. So let's go ahead. A little bit of history and fundamental concepts. Most complex engineering problems have multiple objectives, and the solutions are inevitably trade-offs. And the history of optimization, it's a very long history. It started approximately in the 19th century, but it really took off after World War II, with its focus on optimal inventory control, optimal logistics, defense, and decision-making under uncertainty. So if we take a good examples from the previous research in multi-objective optimization, I think car design, automotive design is something that we can use here to explain the concept. So most cars that we see on the road is a product of various trade-offs. And let's simplify the problem by considering only two design objectives. We optimize affordability and survivability of the driver. Of course, we cannot design a car that is optimal in both objectives. We can either design a very affordable car, but the survivability of the driver will be very questionable, or we can design a car that is 100% survivable for the driver, but it'll be as expensive as a battle tank. So most cars we see as on the road are the product of the trade-off. And the way we do that, we try different designs, and then we plot each particular design on a two-dimensional chart if we want to optimize on the two objectives. And we do a random search or systematic search of design. We try different approaches, try different materials, try different ways of combining components of the car, and we get a design. So this particular design, this blue dot, is not a very good from the multi-objective perspective, because you can see there are other designs that can be improved in both dimensions, that are better than this particular design in both dimensions. The terminology in multi-objective optimization is that this design is dominated by other designs. There is another set of designs that are not dominated by other designs, and this particular design is at the edge of what we have tried so far, and this particular design can be improved in one dimension only by sacrificing other dimensions. So a set of designs like this is called Pareto optimality or Pareto front, and that's in a nutshell the whole concept of multi-objective optimizations. We're looking for a Pareto optimality or Pareto front, and that's the maximum that we can get if we are facing multiple objectives. How do we do that efficiently? There are a number of algorithms, so let's first introduce some formal definitions. We want to optimize a vector function. That's the representation of our multi-objective design. And typically, this function is hard to evaluate, very expensive to evaluate. Whether we use a physical experiment or a computer experiment, it's hard to evaluate, and that's the main problem. So we also have constraints. We also have our design space, which is a vector of axis. Each design dimension is represented by a range if it's a continuous variable, or it belongs to a certain discrete set of variables. There's a concept of dominance. If every function for one design is better than the same function for other design, that means that this design dominates the second design. And the Pareto optimality is the set of all designs that are not dominated by others. So that's the formal definition. We are now familiar with concepts. Let's proceed to the discussion. How do we find the Pareto optimal in real problems? Most of the methods of finding Pareto optimal front is variation on random sampling. And that's very unfortunate, because in a single objective optimization in machine learning, we have a lot of interesting, very efficient method. Gradient optimization is most famous. But in the multi-objective optimization, unfortunately, almost all methods that we see are variations on the random search. So we generate a random set of designs, evaluate them on our criteria, then we select the designs that we like according to our function that we want to optimize, and then we generate the next set of designs from this front. And we repeat that over and over again, and that's an example of what we typically get in the model problem. So we have four stages where we generate different generations of designs and evaluate there on the two-dimensional evaluation space. There's a slight improvement in that. It's called evolutionary or genetic approach, where we use random sampling, but not simply random sampling. We benefit from what we know from nature, and what we know from nature is that sexual reproduction is very efficient in eliminating designs or variants that are not fit for a particular purpose, and is very efficient in producing the designs that are fit for a particular purpose. So we use that. We represent each design as a vector, and that's the DNA. And then we recombine this vector, these DNAs in the next generation. And we repeat that over and over again. We produce new generations of offspring, and that's a slightly more efficient way of dealing with random search. So these are the references. I will share my presentations. There are links. What I find interesting is that it's while recent papers are very good in giving the references for the most advanced version of algorithms, I find it very interesting to read old papers, because old papers may contain some ideas that were abandoned because of the lack of computer power, for example. But if you look at the old papers, you can resurrect those ideas and try to do something about that. Also, regarding the random search, I think what I would like to see is a set of algorithms that actually explicitly takes into account the fact that we have a limited budget on a physical experiment or a computer experiment. This whole point of a multi-objective optimization in a large design space with the functions that are difficult to optimize is that we have a budget for our experiments. And none of the algorithms that I've seen, maybe I haven't seen all algorithms, but none of the algorithms actually explicitly takes into account the fact that we need to balance the budget that we have for experiments with the precision with which we can find the Pareto optimal front. So that's that on random search. There is some very interesting extension or rather modification of random search, is Bayesian optimization using surrogates. So since the function that we want to optimize is very expensive, we can try to build a surrogate function that actually represents how the vector optimal function behaves depending on our designs. It'll be approximate, it'll be not precise, but it can save us on the actual physical or computer experimentation. We can use that function to direct us in the direction where we will get maximum gain in terms of approaching to the Pareto optimal solution. So that's that. The algorithm looks like that. It's much more complex than a simple random search because it involves building a surrogate function on top of the data that you produce during the experimentation. But still, I think it's still more efficient than the genetic approach, and potentially, I think it can give it can produce an algorithm that will efficiently and explicitly take into account the budgeting, which is what I think is desirable. Bayesian optimization is beneficial because we're not blindly combining our design like in genetic approach, but we are trying to use the whole amount of data that we obtained in our experimentation to quickly approach Pareto front, right? Okay. So how do we make decisions? How do we actually work out which design is better? Well, first thing is we don't. If we design a part of the system, if we design a module in a controller of tokamak that's supposed to achieve something, we designing a part of the system, and it's beneficial from the point of view of the design of the whole system to pass not the optimum what we see on our side, but actually the whole set of solutions obtained in the multi-objective optimization, so that on the next level we can combine them with some room for wiggle. That's the efficient way of doing modular multi-objective hierarchical optimization. But if you are forced to make a decision on your level, there is a way of combining multiple objectives into one. It's called scalarization. We just take the components of the vector function we optimize, and we produce a scalar version that we actually optimize. And yes, we can find a design that corresponds to the optimum of this function on the Pareto front. That will be design that we can use. So that is how we use the. That is how we make decisions on the Pareto front, and we will see examples of that in tokamak design and in controlling of plasma states in our example section. Right. So tokamak design and control applications. Like I said, it's a huge design space. The whole thing is huge. It's maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands of different dimensions that we can optimize. There are multiple, often conflicting objectives, there is a need for systematic approach to experimentation, including physical experimentation and computer experimentation. And TCV that Adriana mentioned, I think it's an attempt to have a physical system that is configurable so that we can test different designs and different approaches. But it's still super expensive to use in experiments. So we use computer experiments, and computer experiments again are very expensive. You want to have a full simulation of plasma from larger scales to shorter scales. It's super expensive. It can take weeks, maybe months to produce a reasonable simulation. So yes, it's if we can do that efficiently, if we can design our experiments efficiently, both physical and computer experiments, we will benefit from the knowledge we gain. This is a set of examples that I would like to cover. I think, yeah. So the way people approach that is that they take a partial problem. There's no way to actually design the whole tokamak, the whole machine with its thousands, tens of thousands variables. So people usually take a small problem and see if they can optimize several dimensions at the same time. They use random samples. There are algorithms that are available in Python packages, in standard packages. There is a genetic optimization. There is a Bayesian optimization algorithm. And there are two examples that I would like to mention. There is a Q profile optimization for STEP. There is a toroidal field coil design. It's partially machine design, partially plasma state design. So multi-objective Bayesian optimization for the design of Pareto optimal current drive profiles. And that's what they want to optimize. Q factor is for those unfamiliar, it's how the magnetic field is twisted in tokamak, and it's very important in its stability. And this particular group of authors want to have a particular profile that shows that, well, Q0 want to be close to Q mine, near the center. There are some requirements they want to see toward the edge. So how can we achieve these multiple objectives using control parameters? What they want to control is electronic heating, electron cyclotron heating. They use different profiles of that heating to achieve different profiles of the safety factor. And this is a chart that shows how well they actually achieve their objectives. We do see that they achieved their objectives pretty well in some areas, but in these areas it's not very well achieved. So it's I guess it's a typical situation. You can have multiple goals. You can try to achieve these goals, but since your design space is constrained, since your ability to wiggle parameters is constrained, some of the objectives that you want to achieve will never be achieved. And that's an example of the situation here. So this is like I said, the profile of electron cyclotron heating and Q shape. Fine. Another example is shaping of magnetic field coils in fusion reactors using Bayesian optimization. Again, Bayesian optimization, you're familiar with that already. What they want to do, they want to optimize the ripple of the magnetic field and the size of the toroidal field coils. So the ripple is the maximum value of the magnetic ripple. They want magnetic field to be as smooth as possible, and they want to, at the same time, they want to have a volumetric sum of the coils to be small as well. So they are minimizing these parameters. And this is the design space, large design space with a variety of parameters related to the toroidal coils. These are the ranges. which you're also familiar with, and that's how that's the typical result in their experiments. They try different designs. They plot the ripple and the size of the coils, and they want to achieve these parameters as small as possible. That's the result. I think this is what is expected in a realistic multi-objective optimization. It's very rugged, it's very rough, but that's what they have given their constraints and their ability to wiggle parameters. That's Pareto front that they received. So now they use. I imagine they can pass these designs further to the engineering team that designs the rest of the system, and that next engineering team can use any point on this Pareto front to make that better. Okay, so machine design challenges and opportunities. Physics doesn't solve everything. Of course, we are getting physics more and more transparent in tokamaks, but problems in engineering are different. Multi-objective optimization can help plan real experiments. I think we will see that more and more in the future. What I think is also interesting is that in a multi-objective Bayesian optimization, we have surrogate models that we use to search for the Pareto optimality on top of surrogate models that we use for modeling. So these layers of surrogate models are helping in efficiency of our computer simulations, but the question about the veracity of the simulations is still open. Maybe in the future we will see more hierarchical approach to the design of tokamaks. Okay, so that's that. Plasma control. A couple of examples in plasma controls. I'd like to skip a few examples and proceed to the latest. Well, not skip, but mention briefly. So here's the list of examples that I want to consider. It's disruption scenario management. The objective here is to minimize runaway electron impact along with mechanical stress and heat losses. The way they do that is using scalarization. They combine the objective into a scalar loss function, which is much easier to optimize. There's a paper on robust vertical stabilization. Very interesting. They use multi-objective function, and they find Pareto front as the result. And a third paper is they're trying to control kappa, which is plasma elongation, and beta, which is plasma pressure. And they do both. They do Pareto front, and then they use scalarization to design optimal strategy. I'd like to briefly talk about multi-objective Bayesian optimization of tokamak disruption. So this is an example of the design where there are multiple objectives. It's what they want to see in their disruption prevention, and this is how they combine it into a single objective. My question is that that particular paper, it's actually a dissertation, a master thesis from Sweden. They present several designs of this scalar function that they want to optimize, and the question for me is by tweaking this design, by adjusting the design, how sure we are that the optimality that we achieve is the optimality that we should have in as part of the engineering problem, and not the optimality of the function that has little or no relation to reality. So the more you tweak your objective, the more you bring your own attitude, your own idea of what is more important, what's less important in your multiple objectives, and the less and less you are confident that you're actually optimizing something close to reality. This is one of the objections against turning a multi-objective optimization into a single objective optimization. Also examples, scenario trajectory optimization and control on step. Very interesting paper, there is a link in the presentation. They use scalarization, and as you can see, they minimize the time integral of the flux of a plasma and induction of a plasma. These are quantities that are measured in different units, even though they are normalized. It's not self-evident that they should be combined this way and not some other way. And this is another objections against turning a multi-objective optimizations into a single scalar objective function. Okay, so this is their constraint space, also very interesting. Another example, robust plasma vertical stabilization in tokamaks. Actually, Adrianus is the author. Multi-objective focus here is presented here. Another interesting paper from a Korean group, and they actually explicitly present the Pareto front in their optimization of couple, which is plasma elongation, and beta plasma pressure, and they design an optimal strategy by using scalarization. So the last very fresh paper last week, machine learning framework for spherical tokamak, pedestal prediction and optimization. What I like about this paper is that they use their search for Pareto optimality using purely data-centric approach. So given a database of experimental data, find the best discharges, find the parameters corresponding to these best discharges, and how can we extend the experiments, further experiments, to make it even better. So that's what they are trying to optimize. It's a normalized beta, Greenwald fraction, line average density, everything they want to maximize, and time until the next ALM. ALM, it's edge localized most, it are precursors of disruption, if I understand correctly. They want to postpone that as long as possible. So experiment, they balance multiple goals, they analyze trade-offs for objectives, and that's what they achieve. So as we can see, we see a projection of the 4-dimensional multi-objective function onto 2 dimensions, beta and Greenwald fraction. And the Pareto front is very clear here, very clear. This is the Pareto front. This is what they want to achieve. Another example is they project their Pareto front onto next 2 dimensions. It's the time until the next ELM and the line density. And the Pareto front, represented by red points, is rugged. It's not as clear, and that should be what we expect in this kind of experimentation. So the extension of this work is that, okay, given these results, how can we extend our experiments? How can we move forward to design even better discharges, so that we can move forward further and further in our search for Pareto optimality? That's one possibility. Like I said, not too many papers, unfortunately, use multi-objective optimizations, although, like I said, it's a very important thing, because we are moving toward a complex engineering problem from purely physical problem, and we need to be able to combine multiple objectives into a design that satisfies these multiple objectives. That's it. Sorry if I overshoot. Thank you. And if you have questions, comments.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Vaclav. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. We still have around 40 people online, and we still got
Thank you all.
yeah. And we got a few questions. First one from Evgeny. What are the approaches to create a parameterized device design so design problem turns into optimization problem?
Right. It's well, from the multiple objective optimization, I think we try different designs. We see how they fare on their closeness to what we see optimal. So there is no methodological problem. We use randomized search, we use evolutionary algorithm, or we use surrogate function to find how our design objectives depend on our design variables, and we search for Pareto optimality. If I understand correctly, that's how they do it. It's a variation of random search. Unfortunately, there are no gradient algorithms here that would help us, and I hope with more attention to multi-objective optimization, eventually we will have something like that, something more gradient based. But so far, it's a random search, so we just try different designs, and that's it.
Good, thank you. One more question, and I feel like Georgi can handle it. Like Kamran is asking, given all of this, how is Next Fusion using multi-objective optimization? And what sort of things can you optimize with your codes? Georgi, it seems to be about one of our projects.
Yeah, so
specifically.
Basically, we're not using right now in a full scale. We are exploring ways to introduce this multi-objective optimization in our design process for our clients. We're aiming to optimize some engineering parameters starting from coil positioning and number of coil positions. So you can observe something similar, for example, in Fuse suit designed by General Atomics. So they have still the more or less same process of multi-parametric optimization for, let's say, reactor design. And we are trying to apply it right now for our clients and see how it works.
Okay, thank you, Georgi. As far as I can see, that's it. We don't have any more questions, so I can only say that thank you, everyone. Thank you, Georgi, Adriano, Sarah, and Vaclav for presenting. Thank you very much for asking so many questions. We got even more questions than we can see, but some of them are not about plasma control. Some are just random comments and questions. I will return back to all of these people, and I will try to have meaningful discussion, and we will try to figure out how we can help each other. And thank you all.